Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to Guided Abroad. This week in Lecce, I met saints who felt like old friends, felt friction between my past spirituality and what I'm being called to now. And I was reminded how comfort and challenge work together to help us grow. Let's dive in. Good morning, friends. Where we left off last week, I was feeling in the resistance. I was trying to find my way across the crossroads that I'd faced before. And that resistance was showing up as busyness. When I asked my guides, what can I do to not jump forward into action, but be present in the moment? The answer I got was, just don't. And that may seem a little bit flip, but there really is something as simple as just don't. So often we hope to change, we plan to change, we think about doing or not doing. We don't actually change. And many times it's within our power. It's our thinking, our behavior, our mindset. And so in this case, that's exactly what I did. I said, so I'm just gonna not go into action. Instead, I'm gonna figure out what I can do here that's about being here fully present. What I end up finding is a walking history and food tour. Much like Matera, I left with just as many questions as I had when I arrived. And that's because I wasn't able to get answers about spirituality outside of Catholicism. But when in Rome, as they say, I'm in Lecce. Baroque architecture for churches is the centerpiece on display. So I spend the next afternoon touring what I've understood to be the best churches in town. And unexpectedly, I had some very moving experiences that still hold on to my mind to this moment. The first of them was walking into a church and seeing this beautiful painting of Philip Neri in prayer. I recognized it immediately as the experience that I have every day in meditation, the direct communion. And man, I was mesmerized by it. I felt so joyful to see something so familiar on these ancient walls. The next experience that I had was coming across a statue of Padre Pio. The statue felt like an old friend, felt like someone I had a deep respect for, but was very familiar with. And as I moved about the church it was in, I kept feeling myself wanting to look over my shoulder and say, is he looking at me now? Is it my time to come over? We were having an interaction, even though it's an inanimate object. The third happening was with Claire of Assisi. It was this beautiful mural on the wall that depicted her. And as I walked in, immediately my eye went there. And in this case, the energy was a feeling of sisterly companionship and curiosity. So those three saints feel like friends, acquaintances, maybe teachers that I've known before. The other thing that came out of it was some feeling of anxiety about how big the disconnect is between what I'm used to experiencing around spirituality, which is very land-based, very simple, and very direct with spirit, and what I'm seeing here, full of gilded grandeur, and then also with a whole set of rules, lots of ways to be wrong. So that was leaving me with a little bit of a rub, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. So, as you've come to know, I sat down with my guides. In the following clip, I'm in conversation with my guides, reflecting on my frustration about not being able to engage in a broader conversation about spiritual practices here in Italy. I want to ask the guides, my guides, team, what is it that I'm supposed to be picking up about Christianity and about this culture in Italy? What were you hoping that I would glean from this? The religious foundation that Sarah is noticing offers a contrast to what she has experienced in the past. This contrast is an important thing to be called out because it opens her to recognizing that she doesn't understand the world as deeply as she thinks she does. She recognizes now that there is much beyond her purview, much beyond what she has been able to understand in the past, much more to learn. And it helps her to understand how people can be so dismissive of spiritual practices that are not framed from the context that they are used to seeing, or that they may simply think you're talking about something that they are used to seeing and not comprehend the message that's trying to be delivered. This is the bias that she speaks of, where they hear something, but it turns in their mind because they're looking for confirmation. Their assumption is that things that they receive confirm what they already know, and so they hear it in a slightly different way. And so if Sarah isn't going to wake people up to open their eyes, she has to be able to talk about the spirituality that she understands exists in the context of their various religions. This is what we want her to see. This is part of what she's here to understand. In this clip, I get this clarity from the guides of this is what you're here for. This contrast that you're observing, this friction that you're experiencing between your past experiences and what you're experiencing now is exactly what we want you to have observed while you're here. Because where there's friction, where there's resistance, there's opportunity. With this extra clarity and insight, I naturally am thinking like, okay, great. What do I need to do now? How do I get the most out of this opportunity without overdoing? As the conversation with my guides continues, I gather guidance from them on how to focus my time for the remaining days in Lecce. What else do I need to accomplish on this visit that I haven't already done? It is important that you go to the History Museum. This will give you important background that you need about this area. Why do I need that background? It is going to help you to connect dots that right now you are not seeing. Should I be studying? Should I be taking pictures or researching in some way? All this is not necessary. Go to the museum, walk the streets, record your podcasts. These are the key activities. Notice how they push me back, nudge me back. I start to jump into how much more can I be doing? Should I be studying? Should I be doing this? Should I be asking, trying to get very busy again? And they gently say, all of that is not necessary. Just do these 3 things and all will be well. I love that about our partnership and about the way they help me to prioritize, and your guides can help you to prioritize when you have many opportunities or many things that you could be doing in a day. Oh, and for those loyal listeners who have been asking, what about the man on the street that you had that electric glance with in episode 10? During this same conversation, I got the tiniest glimpse of what to expect. Will I come back, or should I return specifically to Lecce? Yes. Why? Why is that? There are connections for you to make here that you will not make on this trip, that you cannot make on this trip. Does this have something to do with the man on the street? Yes. Will I see him again on this trip? No. Oh, sad trombones. So it sounds like we're not going to see anything more develop with that gentleman on this scouting trip. We'll have to wait and see if something more unfolds in the future. But in the meantime, I did go to the museum. On the way to the museum, I stopped in at this shop that I found that sells avocado toast, something that I actually eat almost every morning back home. It was not exactly what I expected, but it was fun to give it a try. And another delightful thing that happened at that stop was I noticed they had a Ben & Jerry's ice cream case. And in that case, they had my very favorite flavor. That's my indulgence when I maybe get a little homesick. It was really comforting to see there's a place where I can get this taste from back home. Continued on to the museum, and just like the guides say, those dots came together. So first of all, I was oriented in great detail to Italy, the region, and how industries have played out over time, which was really helpful context. And then as I got into all the historical artifacts, I was so joyed to see such familiar artwork, cave drawings, pottery shards, spiritual artifacts that looked so similar to what I've seen all around the world from indigenous practices. And this gave me some grounding, gave me some safety, a sense of comfort, just like that attempt at avocado toast did. This experience reminded me of how we stretch in an area of growth. We push out into the unfamiliar, the unknown. And then when we start to get overwhelmed, we seek comfort, seek familiarity. And that ebb and flow allows us to grow. This was something that was happening in real time for me here. And I had a couple other blessings. On the way home, I found an Indian restaurant, which is one of my favorite foods. Then I stumbled across a metaphysical store, a crystal shop, that stocked almost all the same things I would see in a well-stocked store in the US. Again, that reaching out into the unfamiliar and then circling back, being pulled back in and grounded in familiarity and that sense of comfort and safety, so that you have the opportunity and the courage to reach out even further into your edges, into the unknown. Both sides of the coin, the familiar and the unfamiliar, need to exist, and we move between them in a natural ebb and flow in order to expand. So I wonder, where are you today? How much of your day are you spending in your comfort zone? How much of your day are you reaching out into the unfamiliar to grow? Whether you are wandering the streets of Lecce in a conversation, a boardroom conversation, or just circling the dinner table with your family, notice how much time you're spending in these two different categories. The other great thing to notice is you can choose to flip at any time. That's the opportunity that I took after hearing, in response to my question, how do I not move into action too soon? That response was, you just don't. So when I feel myself going into action, now I go, oh, I notice it. That self-awareness to notice and then to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit back for a second. I'm going to listen and be present. What a gift. You've been listening to Guided Abroad with me, Sarah Cook. The guides reminded me this week that contrast isn't here to divide us. It's here to sharpen our sight. Where are you feeling this type of friction in your own life right now? I'd love to hear from you. Comment or email me at podcast@sarahcook.com. Until next time, keep going within to lead beyond.